he didn't whisper it. He said it clearly in front of coaches, players, and staff. A senior director from EuroLeague questioned whether Filipino players truly understood the game. Not skill, not effort, intelligence. And in that moment, something deeper than pride was challenged inside that quiet Manila gym. The air changed instantly. No one interrupted him. No one argued. But every player in that room felt the weight of those words. Because this wasn't just criticism. It was dismissal. Years of instinct, creativity, and lived basketball experience reduced to a single assumption about what they supposedly lacked. He had come to evaluate talent, not to offend. But his perspective was already fixed. To him, basketball IQ meant strict adherence to systems, precise execution, predictable movement. Structure was intelligence. Anything outside of that felt undisciplined. And what he saw in Filipino play didn't fit that definition. The scrimmage was scheduled immediately. Closed doors. No audience. Just a hardwood court under harsh lights. The director would run everything. His system, his pace, his expectations. It was framed as an opportunity, but everyone understood what it really was. A test designed to confirm a belief. Morning came without ceremony. The players warmed up in silence. No music, no laughter. Even the ball sounded different against the floor. Each bounce carried tension. Across the court, the director observed, arms folded, already measuring movement, already identifying what he believed would fall short. The game began with structure imposed immediately. Set plays called from the sideline. Time cuts executed on command. Every movement dictated. The Filipino players followed, but something felt off. Their rhythm was gone, their natural flow replaced by hesitation, as if they were speaking a language that wasn't theirs. Possession after possession, the cracks showed. A pass arrived a second too late. A cut mistimed. Spacing collapsed under pressure. The opposing side, trained within the director's preferred system, capitalized easily. The scoreboard began to separate, quietly reinforcing the narrative forming in his mind. From the sideline, he nodded slightly, not in approval, but in confirmation. This was what he expected. Talent without structure, energy without discipline. The players could feel it. Not just the score, but the judgment. It hung over every decision, every movement, tightened the game around them. But one player wasn't focused on the scoreboard. The point guard watched something else entirely. Not just his teammates, not just the defense. He was watching the system itself, the patterns within it, the predictability hidden beneath what was supposed to be control. He noticed how defenders rotated early, trusting the structure to hold. How help defense arrived on schedule, not instinct. How every movement followed expectation. It was precise, efficient, but it was also readable. And anything readable could eventually be understood. The next possession began the same way. Same formation. Same entry pass. From the outside, nothing had changed. But internally, the guard made a small decision. He delayed a step, just enough to see what would happen if the rhythm shifted slightly. A defender moved early, exactly as expected. The rotation triggered before the play fully developed. That was all the confirmation he needed. This wasn't just defense. It was choreography. And choreography, once recognized, could be disrupted. He didn't abandon the system. He bent it, slight adjustments. A drift instead of a cut. A pause instead of sprint. Teammates began to notice. They trusted it. Slowly, almost invisibly, the rigid structure started to stretch under pressure. The game shifted, not dramatically, but enough. A passing lane opened where there shouldn't have been one. A defender hesitated, unsure whether to follow the system or react. That hesitation created space. And space, even for a second, changed everything. The scoreboard tightened, not through force, but through understanding. Each possession became a quiet puzzle. The Filipino players weren't reacting anymore. They were anticipating, seeing the next movement before it happened, not breaking the system, but reading through it. On the sideline, the director leaned forward. Something felt different now. The same players who struggled earlier were moving with clarity, not rigid, not chaotic, something in between, something he hadn't accounted for when forming his initial judgment. Another possession. The guard brought the ball up slowly. No signal from the sideline this time. No instruction. Just observation. The defense set itself confidently, expecting familiarity, expecting control. But control depends on predictability, and that predictability was beginning to slip. A screen came, but at a slightly altered angle. The defender adjusted late. The help rotation arrived a fraction behind schedule. That fraction was enough. The ball moved quickly, not randomly, but with intention shaped by what the defense revealed. To an untrained eye, it might have looked improvised, but every movement had logic. Every decision carried information. This wasn't undisciplined basketball. It was rapid calculation, built from experience that couldn't be written into a playbook. The score was now nearly even. The tension returned, but in a different form. Not doubt, anticipation. Even the director could feel it. The game he thought he understood was showing him something unfamiliar, something that didn't fit neatly into his framework. Final minutes approached. The next basket would set a new scoring mark for the scrimmage. No one spoke about it, but everyone knew. The pace slowed. Every movement carried weight. Every decision felt permanent. The guard crossed half court. Calm, focused. He didn't look at the bench. He didn't call a play. The defense aligned, confident again, relying on structure to close the game. They believed the system would hold under pressure. The first action began. A simple setup. Nothing unusual. The defense reacted exactly as designed. Rotations triggered. Help defense prepared. Everything was in place. Everything was correct. And yet, something invisible was already forming beneath it. The guard saw it, not as it was, but as it would be, a gap that didn't exist yet, but would appear for a split second if the defense committed fully. He trusted that moment before it even arrived. Without turning his head, without confirming the angle, he made the pass. A no-look assist, released into space that seemed empty. For a fraction of a second, it looked like a mistake, like the ball was going nowhere. Then the timing revealed itself. A teammate cut into that exact space at full speed. The ball met him perfectly, as if both had been guided by the same thought. One motion, one finish. The basket fell cleanly through the net. The buzzer followed immediately. The record was broken, but no one reacted right away. Not the players, not the staff. Even the defense stood still, trying to understand what had just happened. The director didn't speak. He watched the replay in silence. Not the shot, the pass. Again and again, trying to map it, trying to place it within the system he believed defined intelligence. But it didn't fit, because that moment wasn't drawn from a diagram. It came from recognition, anticipation, and trust built over years of playing in environments where structure wasn't given, but discovered. A different kind of intelligence, one he hadn't considered fully before. Later, his tone changed. Not dramatically, not publicly, but enough. He no longer questioned whether Filipino players understood the game. He questioned whether his own definition had been too narrow. And on that quiet court in Manila, the answer had already been given.